You may want to rethink your weekend plans. When you head to Macy's Backstage, you could win up to $25 off your next purchase. It starts with finding deals you can't believe at Macy's Backstage. Off price, on trend, arriving daily. Make any $30 purchase and get a scratch-off card. Everyone wins $5, $10, or $25 off their next Backstage purchase. Monday, December 3rd through Sunday, December 16th. Go on, win the weekend. Saturday and Sunday. Details on card. For locations, visit Macy'sBackstage.com.
Hey everyone, this is Tony Kaufman for another episode of our wonderful show. I'm being so proud, the World Class Mentors. And one of the reasons I'm so proud this morning is because talk about a fireball. If this woman does not wake you up, nothing will. We're celebrating Jane M. Powers this morning. And you know what's funny is the M is a middle initial, but it does empower you. So Jane M. and Powers, and she just cut a book called Speak with Confidence, Sell with Authority. I mean, this is the hottest thing on the market at the moment, right, Jane?
Yeah, that's what I'm telling everybody.
All right. Let me tell you a little bit about Jane. I met her at a summit that we had in Orlando, and every time this woman walks into the room just lights up. And she is that kind of personality. She walks with confidence, and she's so you're magnetic. I think that's the word. You're magnetic. People want to just kind of stick around wherever you are.
Thank you.
So, Jay, okay, so here's your mission from what I understand it. If I'm not seeing it correctly, let me know. So you guide entrepreneurs to speak, sell, and soar by overcoming blocks, keeping them from closing more deals and taking more stages. Is that a good way to say what you do?
Absolutely. Yes, absolutely. That, I guess, the best way that I can encapsulate, like, the umbrella over my business is I love when people find their voice, because when they find their voice, in that is their power. And it doesn't matter it doesn't matter if they're on a stage or a radio or anything. It could be finding your voice with your kids. That's probably the best place to start, quite frankly, and your relationships. So, yes, it's exactly what I do, Tony.
But you thoroughly mastered the science of speaking and selling. And let's celebrate this with you. You hit the $2 million mark with businesses, and as well as vaulting your own coaching business beyond six figures in less than 12 months. And, you know, what's the craziest part here is you only had about 300 people on your list. You didn't have this mega list of people opting in to hear everything you ever wrote or waiting on your last breath. 300 people on a list, getting you to seven figures is quite an accomplishment, folks. And so,
it was a crappy list.
At the same time, hold on, you did that and still ran a full-time real estate business.
Yes, I did. And it's so funny because, speaking of the real estate business, what I did, and I thought this was the way that you grow your list, I just took my real estate list of crappy 300 and moved them to my coaching list. Isn't that how we do it? So it was not even a list that had said, oh my gosh, we want to learn more about what you do. They did real estate deals with me, so I had a lot of opt-outs.
Oh my goodness! Yeah, you were doing exactly what they tell us not to do, is to kind of opt them in by force.
Yeah, they're voluntold to get my stuff. So love it, and then they were opting out all over the place. And quite frankly, I have not been, up until now, or up until a handful of years ago, I really didn't believe in doing things like everybody else did. You'll see the marketplace and people are saying, go and do this, and everybody's going left. I always go right. It's part of my natural instinct, and I guess, my rebel in me, but I always want to do things a little different so I don't blend in. And that's what I did. I created, like I told you, a couple of multi-million-dollar businesses. One happened to be in real estate, and I still do a lot of that. But getting on stages, I've been speaking professionally about 30 years, doing sales simultaneously at the same time. So either I'm just really good or I'm old. I'm not sure which it is, Tony.
Well, I think good and old. We're like wine. Come on. I mean, the older it gets, the better it is, right? Unless it didn't touch the cork.
Yes.
So, Jane, all right, in a nutshell, let's tell the world exactly what you're doing and what inspired you to write this wonderful book that's doing so well.
So I will tell you what inspired me to write the book was everybody kept saying, how are you getting on these stages without having a book? And I kept telling them, I'm like, I know the secret to get on stages and not having to take all that time to write a book. Well, it got to the point where I was bursting with a lot of knowledge, and I knew that I wanted to put it out in the world, and I thought it would be a great way for people to get it, to really step into their own power and see where they're, where they're wanting to go and what they're wanting to say, because that's probably the hardest thing for people. So truly what I started doing was putting down all the different tips that I had around speaking and selling, and by the time I looked at how much I had, because quite frankly, everybody has a book probably in their computer, in their files, because if you're out there in the world, you're writing a ton of content. So I'll tell you exactly what I do. Entrepreneurs hire me to speak with confidence and sell with authority, because most are boring, confusing, and inconsistent, and I am probably the only one who will tell them. So I help them get out there, connect, capture, and close their ideal audience. Bottom line, every time they open their mouth, they make money. So as you know, Tony, that is my trademark infomercial, and that is what I help people do. So I help people do an infomercial. So when you introduce yourself, it takes 17.5 seconds to sell it. I help people create talks that go from stage to webinars to video to from 2 minutes to 2 days, 3 days, and I help people sell. I have my Code to Close program because, quite frankly, this is what breaks my heart. We have a desire, people have a passion, they have a dream, they go out in the world, they want to be entrepreneurs, and they struggle. And I believe the two foundational pieces of your work in the world of taking your passion and your mission and putting it out there is you've got to know how to articulate it so that it sells. And when it sells, you got to help people understand what they desire and help them get to a yes. And if that's to work with you, then that's what I help people do.
So, Jane, may I ask, when you say people need to speak with confidence, I mean, is there like a formula that you designed to get them to totally understand their mission, their message, and their vision? I mean, because that's usually, every time I go to these events, the number one question people ask are, how do I get clarity, right?
Yeah, and most people are wanting to be very broad and wide. And I think that's okay. A lot of people say, get rich in a niche. Well, I'm sorry. I work with the subconscious mind quite a bit. And if you tell the subconscious mind, we're going to narrow all the way down to this tiny little, I'm going to work with women that are 5'5", weigh 130 pounds. They are of the age of 47.5. If we narrow that much, it constricts our thinking. It constricts our ability to feel confident. So what I do is I take someone's purpose. They're like, oh, I want to help people find their voice. Let's say it's that. I start to narrow about 10 to 20%. I think that's okay because you're moving towards a very narrow niche. I started working with everybody and anybody because I thought, why not? Like, it just seemed easier. I could sell to everybody. And I was a spiritual life coach, Tony, and I found, as you call me, the fireball, I was an impatient spiritual life coach. So I decided to change to business. I thought it was a little easier. But so back to what happens is once we start to identify some of the material, what I do is I take the talk, put it into, or I put their information into a 7-point system in their talk, and there's 7 key components that must be in your talk to sell. And once people get that, 50% of their confusion, their fear, anything that they have, once they have that talk in hand and their infomercial, people are on fire. I have one gal. I hope you meet Heidi Mount someday, Tony. Heidi came up to me, crying her eyes out, tall, modelist, beautiful woman, and she's crying, I cannot speak in public. And, I mean, she wouldn't even be on Marco Polo, which is just a video app on your phone. She was so scared. So I wrote, did some mindset, worked on her talk. I'll tell you, her first talk was on a podcast. And before she was done, she got an email for an $18,000 contract. And she's like, I sucked, didn't I? It was so bad, Tony. She cried, I think, during the webinar. But now it took her about a year, and she just got off a stage speaking to 300 people. So if you have a message, doesn't matter how garbled up it is. I'm like the Rain Man. I take a message and I put it into brilliance that sells.
I love it. Absolutely love it. Brilliance that sells. There's your next book, kiddo. Brilliance that sells. Oh, wow. No. These are, for our listeners who are, speakers, coaches, healers. I mean, that's a direct hit. I believe like you. I mean, marketing is not the inclusion. If you're doing marketing right, it's not the inclusion of everyone. It's the exclusion of those you aren't marketing to. And so another one of my favorite sayings is you can't say the wrong thing to the right person. So
absolutely,
marketing done right does that for you. Right. Mm-hmm. Okay, now let's go back. I want to take Jane back a little bit. Who in Texas we say we dance with the one who brung ya. So let's do a little dancing, Jane. Who was your who motivated you? Who made Jane the way you are now?
Who brung me?
Who brung ya?
Who brung me? I'll tell you, it's funny because people, if they, and many people that are around, and actually my next book coming out will be more around my life journey and other people's journey. So I grew up in a very complicated family. I was the youngest of 7. I probably am every statistic that you see out in the world about, what children should not live through. Well, I lived through most of that, all of that, obviously, because I'm here today. And quite frankly, I was a very shy, quiet, I called myself the invisible kid. I didn't want to be noticed. God knows I did not want to be on a stage. I had a deficit in my self-esteem. I had no confidence. I was told I was fat, dumb, and stupid my whole life along. And that was the more inspiring story in my childhood. My mother was alcoholic most of my life and died when I was 14. And even though she was alcoholic, it's funny, I think when you have a parent that passes, no matter, she wasn't Mother of the Year, she wasn't present, but something happens after they pass. She became to me a saint. So my mother was a great inspiration because I knew that if she could have beaten the disease of alcoholism and stayed around, she would have been so proud of me. So everything I did was in the direction of having that pride that I knew she would feel towards me. And so also what I would do, I had this knack to get into people's special graces. So I was always teacher's pet. Now, don't get me wrong, Tony, you know this. I was like Eddie Haskell. I was out causing trouble, but then in front of people, I was a really good kid. And so I had a number of teachers that would literally take me home. And one of my most fondest, most amazing women, Sue Peck, she was a neighbor that moved in right after my mother died in the 8th grade. I baked her a bundt cake, and powdered sugar welcome on the cake. And I took that over because I thought she looked like the coolest person, and she actually was. Every day I was over there at her house sitting and hanging out and staying out of trouble. And I was in sports. That was another thing that literally saved my life. If I didn't have sports, I probably would have been into more things than I could have. I probably wouldn't have been alive today. So inspirations for me, Sue Peck was wonderful. My mother, Madonna Jean. I very dear Glenna Salisbury, who I dedicate my book to. Glenna is a professional speaker, and I met her in 1987, saw her on stage, fell in love, and said, that is who I'm going to be. And there's been so many in addition to that, but those are my most favorite, fondest memories. And God knows all my therapists out there. I send them love. Gail Vance, Dr. Marianne Johnson, all those that helped me through and become the person that I am today.
That's amazing. I love it. And it's funny how you took what could have been a really bad situation for the rest of your life and turned it completely around by putting, understanding the disease and putting your mother where she needed to be to take care of you. Yeah. And so love it. Absolutely great. All right. Yeah. So now we talked about Jade the kiddo, Jade the fireball, Jade the author, and of course Jade the speaker. Where do you? Let's go to the next step of the show, and that's where do you see yourself going forward? What's your pay it forward and your legacy?
You know what? My Pay It Forward is my next book that will be coming out next year, and it's Revealing the Missing Piece, and it's PEACE, and that is a guide for survivors of sexual abuse. And my legacy will be that it will be the quintessential go-to book for anyone that has lived through any level of trauma. It doesn't matter what the abuse was or what the trauma was. I believe that the days of rewounding, reliving, re-experiencing the pain over and over again, because that's what I did in my healing. I believe that we can give it a kind glance, we can experience it in a different way, and then move into empowerment and freedom of expression. So that Tony, I will be on the biggest stages helping individuals understand and see that they are not what happened to them. They are not what was said to them. I was on the Oprah Winfrey Show, my gosh, back in the 80s, and I remember watching the process of how people go through healing. And at that point, I sat in her studio and went, I am writing a book. And I was in my probably early 20s at that point, late 20s maybe. And so what I know is that my speaking, my life has led me to not only help people make a gob of money, because that's always fun, but it's helped me make money so that I can go out and have the impact on the world that I know I am here to do. Because quite frankly, nobody goes through the crap that I went through just to be, like, okay, that was a great inconvenience. Like, I've got to do something with it. It is my responsibility. Because I've come out, Tony, you left. When I was a kid, I would set my own curfew. Everybody would go out partying, and I'm like, no, I've got to be home. And they're like, well, who's home? I'm like, nobody. But I needed to be home because the structure was important to me. So I set up guidelines, and that's what I still do in my life. I set up guidelines, I set up desires, and I know my intention, and I use a lot of mindset to create the life that is just completely at my fingertips.
Love it. For you to be, first thing I have to ask you said you were on Oprah Winfrey. How did you get on the show? What was the segment about?
The segment was on sexual abuse, and they were calling anyone that had, grown up in, I always say in gross, inconvenient circumstances, because you don't want to give it all that much power, but, statistically there's 1 in 3, and I'm one of them. So they called one of the groups that I was in and asked us to come down. And then the coolest part was they called again to have, me on the show. And I'm like, I wasn't real satisfied with the way that it was handled. And I said, it wasn't handled in the way that I would have. They had producers and directors on the line with me for about an hour and a half. And they said, please come and be on the show. And I'm like, nope. And they said, at least watch the show. And I'm telling you, I give Oprah used a lot of the languaging, changed her approach, and I was quite impressed. So it wouldn't be great to have Oprah, write the opening of my book or the forward of my book. So if she's listening, sister, give me a shout out. But yes, that was many years ago. That was many, many years ago. And I'm from Chicago, so we were down, she was downtown.
I got it. And it's really funny because as a former producer of about 7 different TV shows and radio shows, I'm always, if you're a good producer or if you have a good producer, you know that your opinion isn't necessarily the right one. You have to leave it open, and that's how we grow. You would be, just with what you just told me, you would be like the perfect guest because you would bring in a whole new way of looking at things with a constructive end, which is what where people want to take their shows for the most part, especially women shows. So that's very important. Jane, are you speaking on stages about your book? Where can we hear you?
Oh my gosh, yes, I've got a ton of different events set up. I'll be in Carlsbad or Monterey at Michael Neely's event. I'll be at Mastermind to Millions here in June 1st through the 3rd. I'll be at Mastermind to Millions speaking. I have got my own event, which is probably anybody who is listening, you come as my guest to my event. And Tony, I know I'm getting you there. I don't know what your schedule looks like, but we're clearing it. But September 6th, 7th, and 8th, I am actually doing the experiential version of my book. So people will dive into what do they want to do, why do they want to do it, what is their message. I help people with an infomercial. We will create your talk. I will do a full day of sales because I'm a freak of nature. I hate sales. I love the objection. And I have a new program that is Code to Close. I'm implementing that in the event. So that's September 6th, 7th, and 8th. And that is going to be at the Point Hilton here in Phoenix. And let me give you the website if you want to go there. It's letstalkimpact.com. So letstalkimpact.com. And you will. That's a secret decoder. You can go in, and I tell people upgrade to VIP, hang out with people like Tony and myself. I'm going to be feeding you anyhow. So that's where I'll be. I'm trying to think. I'm all over the place, and I'll be in Calabasas in November.
I just love it. I love your energy. I love what you're doing. I love the book. You guys, I'm serious. If you've never heard Jane speak, it's a treat. Make sure, come over and join us in Phoenix, September 6th, 7th, and 8th. Jane, what is your website? How do they get a hold of you?
JaneMPowers.com. So Jane M. Powers. And if you come to my event, I'll tell you the story behind my name. That's the teaser. No. I'm telling you, I'm going to bring in, people that are going to be just supporting everybody. That's my biggest thing. You go to some of these events and people are all about what's in it for me as the host. People always laugh. They're like, I don't know how you do it. I'll go for 3 days, 9 to 9. I don't stop until everybody gets what they came for. So, and we'll have probably about 100 to 150 people in the room, and you'll get what you need. So, and it's fun, because if it isn't fun, I am leaving. Like, I will leave my own event if I'm bored, seriously.
You're amazing. I just love it. And you know what, it's true. So many of these events that I've gone to are what we call a pitch fest, which doesn't turn anybody on. It's just people trying to sell you stuff from stage. And that's not what I find with 2 of my favorite people in the world. One is, of course, you, and one is Jay Fassett. And I mean, and by the way, I think, Jane, I am going to tell people, if they come to your event, do what I do, because I listen slow. So I record you guys, because that way I can listen to it over and over again. Because you have so much animation and so much power and so many messages to get out. That people need to hear it and take notes and record it and, just love on you the way that you're loving back on us. So I absolutely love that. All right, so now we know about Jane. We know what turns you on. We know what makes you tick. We know what your mission is. We want to get your book. Is it on Amazon? Where is your book?
It is.
How can we get
It's on Amazon. It's on Amazon, and I think right now you can order your print copy, but also the Kindle. You don't have to have a Kindle. It can be on your computer. I think it's 99 cents still. I think we did it for a few days, so you can hop on there, get the digital version, and you're gonna love it. Then you'll get the print copy. Come to the event. You'll get a ticket to the event with every purchase of the book. And if you take a picture of yourself and post it to my website, to my Facebook, I upgrade you to what I call my Roadmap to Impact, which is an event before. All you have to do is buy the book. Go on my website, get a hold of me, and I'll get you hooked up.
I absolutely love it. Jane, thank you so much. And
yes,
everyone, you have been listening to the World Class Mentors, and this is truly a treat for us to have Jane M. Powers, with her books, her shows, her events, your energy. The World Class Mentors is a radio show and podcast celebration of people who have achieved world class like Jane, and they achieve it through sharing their stories and honoring their mentors. Jane, you're my winner today. Take care.
All right, Tony. Big hug. All right, everybody. Bye-bye.